Good morning, Zimbabwe. Good morning, Zimbabwe. Hanzi bere rakakudoba mudhara ndikati ndokuti zvityise nai maswera sei vana vezimbabwe vana hanzi mwana wanyu mai Zimbabwe ngatidananei muZimbabwe tirwise mhandu Zimbabwe mwana wenyu mai Zimbabwe mwana wenyu chete Zimbabwe ngatidananei Zimbabwe tirwise mhandu Zimbabwe. Mukoma Allen ichapfuya makadi nhasi ndine a very funny presentation. Remember yesterday I spoke a lot about Russia being not a socialist republic, being not a socialist country. Remember pane vakuru vakauya panapa vanozvitiwo 𝗍𝗹𝗱𝗶𝗶𝗵 pakaipa sekuru Alfredo zviri sei pakauya vakuru vanozviti 𝗍𝗹𝗱𝗶𝗵 pano vakada kutidzisa nhoroondo yekuti Russia yakamira sei, China yakamira sei, zviri sei mukoma Stanford zviri kufamba here. So ndaona zvakakodzera nhasi kuti ndoya panapa tongopanana a brief history of what Russia is like, what Russia looks like. Why I'm making this presentation is I understand that Russian President Putin is under international warrant of arrest, and Putin is set to arrive in South Africa anytime soon. And the South Africans have been given an order to ensure that when Putin lands in South Africa, South Africans must arrest Putin. Has just come to say, how are you, Mkoma Yuda? Atete Peti. And I'm well, Atete Magadi. Atete Peti Mkuze, Pride Chama. So, I need to talk about Russia. I need to talk about Putin. My stance on Russia and Putin is this. Putin must be arrested if he lands in South Africa. This is my stance. This is what I think. This is what I need. As an individual, I need Putin to be arrested and Putin be put on trial because Putin has caused a lot of suffering to the people of Ukraine. Not Ukraine alone. Quite a lot of number of countries were destroyed by Putin. He's just a bully in that region. So I don't see why the likes of Julius Malema would address the world or South Africans that Putin must never be arrested in South Africa. But Julius Malema understand that it's wrong for South Africa to attack Swaziland. You understand what I mean? If Julius Malema is supporting Putin's idea of attacking Ukraine, that is very wrong. That is very wrong. Because it's like today South Africa invading Swaziland, or South Africa invading Lesotho, or South Africa invading Zimbabwe, bombing Zimbabwe, killing Zimbabweans. That is very wrong. As motoraisa Mkoma Yuda, muno South Africa, wano unza hondo. Yeah, it's very wrong for Julius Malema to campaign saying that Putin must never be arrested when he stepped his foot in South Africa. He is a criminal. Putin is a criminal. He's on wanted list. He is like 𝗦𝗂𝘁𝗵 in Zimbabwe. When we talk about 𝗦𝗂𝘁𝗵 in Zimbabwe, people were happy to see 𝗦𝗂𝘁𝗵 being arrested, 𝗦𝗂𝘁𝗵 being tried and sentenced to death, and eventually being hanged. If we talk about Putin, he is operating in a similar way like 𝗦𝗂𝘁𝗵. Because there is nowhere South Africa would issue an order to its military to invade Zimbabwe, attack Zimbabwe, bomb Harare, bomb Bulawayo, bomb Mutare, bomb 3 Brigade. For what reason? For what purpose? This is something that I don't understand. Why would Putin bomb Ukraine? Why would Putin do that? A lot of people are dying. Putin does not discriminate between children and soldiers. He's bombing everyone. Residential areas are being bombed. People are dying. Children are dying. If you are a true human rights activist, a true human rights defender, you will never support Putin's idea of invading Ukraine, killing innocent people, killing innocent civilians. Bombs have been falling on certain buildings that has got nothing to do with governance. Residential areas were bombed by Putin. And I'm saying that 𝗦𝗫𝘂𝘁𝗵 prisoners facing I think I was the most loved prison officer. Even if you ask all the prisoners who came through my hands, they will tell you that, oh, this was the most lovely prison officer. I had no time to slap a prisoner. I had no time for that. Because I used to work like, you know, when a prisoner is sentenced to imprisonment, already that is punishment enough. So as a prison officer, I might try to help that prisoner enjoy staying in prison so that he doesn't feel the pain of being away from the family and the outside world. It means narrow sanctions, you know, yeah. If South Africa refuse to arrest Putin once he jet in South Africa, then South Africans are accomplices to whatever Putin is doing. You cannot invade another country and start bombing that country, start killing citizens of that country for no apparent reason, for no provocation. So this is why I'm saying Putin is a war criminal who must be arrested once he steps in South Africa. So it's wrong for the people, for the likes of Malema Julius to castigate the arrest of Putin once he steps in South Africa. This is why the Americans now, with the intelligence that they've gathered, they now understand that South Africa has helped Putin with ammunition. Although Malema was trying to douse that, to try to put out the fire and say South Africa has no capacity to arm Russia. Malema forgets that South Africa is one of the superpowers in the world. South Africa is classified as one of the superpowers in the world. Classification being the number of soldiers South Africa have, the artillery that South Africa have, the ammunition or the armor or the arms that South Africa have, the planes that South Africa possess. You understand? South Africa is one of a rare African country with the Chinook helicopters. Yakataurwa na mdara, what do you call this? Chidara iji, chimdara changu, chiwenga. Atete QD, zirise, vadruve samaita, zirukufamba. So today, I said, let me try to help, what's his name? William Ponela, to understand this. That what is Russia? What is it like? Why is Russia so aggressive towards its neighbors? Imagine if Zimbabwe was aggressive towards its neighbors. We could have, by now we could be ruling Botswana. By now I could be the president in Zambia. or by now could be the president in Mozambique. If we were so aggressive like what Putin is like in that region, he is simply a bully. A bully. And he invade other countries for no provocation. That must be stopped. And Putin must be arrested. I am going to link certain issues with Zimbabwe. If you look at Zimbabwe, a very good example of Russia. When the Russians came to Africa, or when they come to your country, Russians, they are not bringing any development to your country. I was glad if 𝗦𝗹𝗱𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗺 was here to tell us what Russians have done for Zimbabwe. Since we gained independence, what did Russia help us with? Except selling AK assault rifles to us. Is it true NATO yachipinda mu Ukraine on Friday? I am not sure, Stanford, but if possible, I wish NATO can go and stop Putin. Because he must be stopped now. Putin must be stopped. So this is why I wanted Mkoma William Ponela, William Putin Ponela. I'm calling him Putin Ponela now. Don't call him William. Let's call him Putin Ponela to come here. And I want to teach him something tonight so that he understands what is Russia like. It is not a country that people would want to associate with. Ask any African country. Could Russia yakambovaka ere stadium in an African country? Russia yakambovaka ore chipatara in an African country. Russia yakambosupply mishonga ere kuti vanhu varapwe in an African country. This is why I'm saying that boy anonzi Malema, Julius Malema, I don't think he's the correct opposition leader to run South Africa. I used to think that that boy is much better than all these South African presidents. But I am beginning to see that I was wrong. My perception was wrong. This boy known as Malema is leading South Africa astray. There is nowhere a very sane person can support Putin. Or else Malema does not know the history of Russia, which Malema needs to be taught. The history of Russia is clear. The Russians wrote their history. If they come to your country, they are bringing firearms. They are bringing ammunition. If you go in Zimbabwe, if you go in Africa, not in Zimbabwe alone, this is probably the only continent with the highest number of rifles being sold to Russian rifles being sold to rebels, Russian rifles being sold to oppressive governments like the ZANU-PF government. There is no country in Africa where you cannot find an AK assault rifle. These were made in Russia. AK simply means automatic Kalashnikov. This weapon was made by 𝗍𝗶𝗶𝗂𝘁𝗵 Kalashnikov in 1946. It was designed by 𝗍𝗶𝗶𝗂𝘁𝗵 Kalashnikov in 1946, and the weapon was put into full use in 1947. From 1947 up to now, billions and billions of AK assault rifles were produced by the Russians. This is what they managed to bring to Africa. We cannot call that development. Africans do not need firearms. Look how they are using the firearms. If you go to Nigeria, there are Boko Harams there. Every Boko Haram member is armed with an AK assault rifle. You go to Mozambique, Delgado, every terrorist there is armed with an AK assault rifle. You go to Sudan today, all the weapons you can, these are AK assault rifles made in Russia. And they have found their way into the wrong hands in Africa. What are the results? A lot of people died. People are being abducted at gunpoint, AK assault rifle gunpoint, and people are being shot. There is a video trending which I've seen today. Russia in Msindo. Yeah, Russia is not a country for development. There is a Ugandan video trending on social media. A Ugandan police officer went to an Asian shop and borrowed some money. So I think this guy wanted his money. So he came. I don't know what happened because there is no sound on it. He just cocked his assault rifle, AK assault rifle, fired at the Asian guy, fired, shooting randomly. You understand? It means the AK assault rifles are in the wrong hands in Africa. If you, on the 1st of August 2018, we saw the same AK assault rifles being used by Zimbabwe National Army to kill innocent civilians who were running away from the soldiers. Instead of the soldiers to drive people out of town, they had to adopt a kneeling position, firing randomly. One soldier we saw adopting that sniper's position, kneeling position, sniping at fleeing civilians. Nothing sweeter than listening to you. Yeah, Mkoma justice, because we should tell the truth. The world must know the truth. All these videos we are living are for our generations, or for our children, generations to come to understand the things that we are going through today because of Russia. Africa is suffering because of Russia. Someone was telling me about slave trade. I said, are you nuts? You talk about slave trade. Do you know that slave trade brought benefits to Africans? Although the way we were taken away resisting to go to America. But today, we're the black American. We're an African there. Obama being the president of Africa. Look at all the film stars today, the Will Smith and so forth, are black people. The boxers there in America. The best boxer of all time, Muhammad Ali, was a black person. So, people don't understand that God brought a slave trade in Africa for the better of Africans. Imagine if those people were still in Africa, if Obama was still in Africa, if Muhammad Ali was still in Africa, Joe Frazier still in Africa, Mayweather still in Africa. Well, let's talk about these guys. Those musicians, if they were the likes of Bob Marley, still in Africa, suffering from African poverty. So slave trade brought its benefits. It came with the benefits. This is why now we've got probably the best footballer in the world being an African. The best ever footballer is a black man. What's his name? Pele. Pele. Hakuna muna akambotambira na bora pasipana pasa Pele. The best ever soccer player in the world is a black man, Pele. The best ever boxer, Muhammad Ali, was a black man. So you can tell that slave trade brought its benefits. So if I see someone crying about slave trade, I'll quickly point at him, look at Harare. For the past 43 years, we failed to build a city bigger than Harare. But whites came, bundled us into boats and sold us to America. And they built Harare, they built Johannesburg, they built Cairo there. They built Dar es Salaam, they built Gaborone. Go to Zambia, they built Lusaka. Quite large cities that we benefited. But we are failing to surpass the levels that whites did in 19th century, 18th century, and so forth. So this is why if I see someone saying we must not arrest Putin in Africa, I get so angry. Especially that guy from Studio 263. I get so angry when I see someone saying Putin must never be arrested in Africa. I get so angry, considering the atrocities the AK assault rifle is doing in Africa. A lot of people die on daily. As I'm speaking, people are being shot in Sudan. People are being killed in Somalia. People are being killed in Kenya, Uganda, using the assault rifles, which were designed by the Russians. The Russians never brought development to Africa, but they brought suffering. They are good at trying to counter what America does. This is why you see, when instead of Russia to train our engineers to build bridges, to train our builders to come and build very beautiful buildings in Harare, they were busy training gorillas, arming gorillas with AK assault rifles, with the NATOs and bombs, to come and fight the Smith regime. And what were the results? We ushered an incompetent government. Today, we are under Mnangagwa. Imagine, because of the Russians' rifles which we used, we are under Mnangagwa. We are under Chiwenga. The people who naturally will never taste power in a free society. So what I am saying here is, I wanted Putin Ponela to be here tonight when I am talking about Russia. When I talk about democracy, when I talk about socialism, when I talk about capitalism, you understand what I mean? Putin must be here to understand these very few things and sold to African rebels by America. So, yeah, this is why I'm telling you, Eustace, that slave trade on its own brought a lot of benefits to Africa, to the extent that we have got one of the world's undisputed champion in boxing, Muhammad Ali, being a black man. Imagine if Muhammad Ali was still in Africa when there was no slave trade. Would you know Muhammad Ali? No. Would you know Pele, the best footballer ever in the world? No. Would you know Mayweather? No. If you go to Hollywood there, blacks are doing wonders. Musicians, DJs, a lot of blacks doing wonders in those countries. But when we were being bundled to those countries, we were resisting. Tichinzi mimi tikukudai noti mukarumwa netsetsa musikufa. Saka nemoti batsira basa tairamba. Tikaziva kuti kune ugari hwakanaka huriko kuAmerica. Today, tell the Americans to bring 800 ships that carry 8,000 people per ship. And vapinde muZimbabwe vadaidzira kuti munhu wese arikuda kuenda kuAmerica, anoda kunogara kuAmerica, tava nemaship 8,000. Hapana ship inoenda iri empty. Kana mukanzi muri kuenda makasungwa kudai, black people, maZimbabweans today, vandomhanya nedzavo simbi vakazvisunga kuti ndoda kuenda kuAmerica. So, slavery brought a lot of benefits to Africa. A lot of benefits. If you go to Africans, black Americans, those who came from Africa, and if you say they never benefited from slavery, they'll shoot you, they'll kill you. They'll kill you. I'm telling you. This is why you see today, Eustace, Zimbabweans are voluntarily going into slavery. When people were being taken into slavery, people resisted. But today, people will go voluntarily. Ask Zimbabweans. Ukauya kurogu, unonzi tukuda vanhu vandaka kewe ku England at a minimum wage. Vanouya. Imagine someone is raising 8,000 pounds to pay a COS visa to come and work for minimum wage. Is that not slavery? We are voluntarily coming to these countries for slavery. If you say that is not slavery, then I'll stop from here, Eustace. People are voluntarily going into slavery. Today, my Americans, if they come and say they are advertising for slaves, they will take all the 15 million Zimbabweans into America. Even Muchangwa Chaye goes to America. His children are in America. Ziambi's child became the best Cambridge student in the United Kingdom. These are the people who are issuing propaganda that skewed 𝗪𝗱's mind to think that slavery was bad. But if you sit down, look into the benefits of slavery, slavery yakanaka. Izvinezva akusisina muZimbabwe nari kumanikidzwa kunzi anotokutengesa kuAmerica, andotsvaga mari yokukwira ndege kuuya ega kuno. Vamwe vari kukwira ukaenda kuAfrica muMediterranean makazara zvikepe umu zviri kukudubuka vanhu vachifiramo vachitiza Africa vachiuya kuslavery, into slavery. People are voluntarily coming into slavery. But unonzwa munhu achiti slave trade yanga yakashata. Yanga yakashata because we didn't know where we were going. If we knew, today now you know where you are going, 𝗪𝗱's. You are in the United Kingdom being a slave here. You voluntarily came here to be a slave. Kana ukanzi urikushanda 12 hours, tokupa $10 a day. Hauna choice, you go and work. Anditi manzwisisa. Ndosaka ndati ndachida mudharaponela dai anga ari pano. Tambomudzidzisa shomanini about Russia, because I need to talk about Russia tonight. I need to talk about Russia. Kuti ambonzwisisa mbichana kana anzwisisa chinonzi Russia chi, ozonzwisisa chinonzi socialism chi, ozouya into where we were telling him that Zimbabwe needs a better, or it clearly needs change of leadership. So what I'm going to discuss tonight, I'll talk into the historical development. I'll talk about politics. I'll talk about government and economy. I'll talk about Russia a lot. That's a global thing, yes. People go to work for their families. They go to work for their families. So do you mean, Zimbabwe, honestly, you can't work for your family whilst you're in Zimbabwe, 𝗪𝗱's? You honestly can't work in Zimbabwe for your family. And you think jobs are only found in Britain and America. And I'm also having a lot to share upon Russia. Thanks, Shane. That's one indirectly through sponsorship visas. Yes, people are going into slavery. 𝗪𝗱's is saying, I don't know what he's implying here. To say people are going to work for their families. So, in your country, Zimbabwe, you can't work for your families whilst you are in Zimbabwe. Honestly, you want to believe this. I wonder sometimes whether you are ZANU-PF 𝗪𝗱's, because even Mugabe at one time cried. I don't know. Mugabe at one time cried, trying to stop Zimbabweans from coming into voluntary slavery. You understand? People are being sold here. You raise your 8,000, pay for COS visa to come here to work for 5 years at a minimum wage. £9 an hour, £10 an hour. That is slavery. As is slavery, not kushandira muri, that's running away from poverty or economic refugees. Exactly. That is slavery. Akusi kushandira muri. Because you can work, you can work in Zimbabwe. You can work there. Because if you see someone raising £8,000, it's not a joke. To come and work for a minimum wage, £10. You work for 40 hours a week. Because Zimbabwe, I shanda 37.5 hours. Friday, Saturday, unengori off. Wednesday, unengori half day. And it on. But you come here, you work for 40, 60 hours. Zuwa uruone. Mu UK uruone zuwa 𝗪𝗱's. Rinobuda uri mke home. Rinodoka uri mke home. Unobuda 2 hours kunorara kumba. Unongochirwa shift ya 7 to 7. 7 in the morning, 7 in the evening. 8 in the morning, 8 in the evening for 5 days. Friday, ndo yaonengori off. Or Saturday, that is if you cannot zvipa off. Because you are paid by your work. What you do is how you get paid. So I am saying, for 5 years, wagara muno munyika, uchitanga basa na8 uchipedza na8 chinhu chinonzi sun you will never see it. Haurione zuva unenge uri mukehoma uchimhanya pamubhedha nemubhedha uchichinja kadharaka uchibva uchinobika teka mudharaka uchibva uchinotsvairapo uchibva haurione zuva. Andowanzwa blazo yaitaura ranzi ira uri mwiri haurione zuva Eustace. Kana une nharo neni tobhejerana bhozi ndakazviita ndakazviona. Haumbofa wakaziva kuti kunze kunobuda zuva kunodoka kunoedza kuchidoka. Unenge ungori murumu pabasa chete uchidikitira uchicheziya. That's slavery Eustace. That's slavery. Hanzi nakazi ichokwadi haurione muUK zuva haurione. Ukabvunzwa ukaenda kumusha ukabvunzwa zuva robuda kupi kuUK richidokera kupi haurione zuva munomu. Anoza mngoma Watson unotanga basa na8 kuseni unodzoka na8 manheru worara womuka mangwana 8 wodzoka na8 worara womuka mangwana 8 wodzoka na8 ma12 hour shifts haurioni zuva here, especially kana uri muwinter haumbofa wakaziva kuti kwakambobuda zuva here. Akana you won't see it in UK. And all that's voluntary slavery. Anyway, that is not the topic of today. The topic of today, I want to talk about Russia. I want to teach my brother Putin Ponela about Russia. And I want Ponela to see the reasons why I'm saying Putin akangosvika ku South Africa. South Africa must arrest Putin. And the only reason why these countries are developed, people eat what they kill. Definitely, there is no culture of working. Definitely, because if you don't work 8 to 8, you will never eat in this country. Unowane njara, unofane njara. Saka mbana wangu Eustace anozviziva izvi kuti atiya. So when whites who were poor in Europe came to work hard to build their business and farms in Africa were slaves. They came for business opportunities, those guys. Iwewe Eustace ansana mbokona une gold mine in this country. You probably have been in this country for over 20 years now. Do you have a gold mine? You don't have it. Why? You are a slave in this country. You don't have a gold mine here. Go to Zimbabwe. Whites have got gold mines. They've got farms in Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe. But Iwewe, because you are a slave in this country, you can't have a gold mine in this country. You don't have a farm. Hauna kana garden in this country. Kuti upwe ka lootment kai unodikitira ukawana muno. Chandiri kutaura chokwadi chinorwadza Eustace. This is what you meet in the United Kingdom. Because you came here to work. You didn't come here for business. When the whites went down to Africa, they aimed to go and capture Africans and sell them to the Americans. They aimed to go and dig gold, make themselves rich. They wanted land. This is why you see vairidza zvifefe vachirwa mandere achifa achiti vala ngebhezhu kusvika vatorerwa minda. You must understand this. It's simple history which is there on which is there Eustace. It's a clear history that 10 people went there, 40 blacks, thousands and thousands of blacks. Vachivala ngebhezhu vachibaya nemaspears vachipfurwa vachipera. Kusvika vatora kuti panapa patopera tatoetega pano, mombe dzakatorwa, vakadzi vakatorwa, zvinhu zvakatorwa, mafarms akapegwa makatarisa. Those white people, when they came to Africa, they came for business. And vakasvika vakavaka majeri vakaintrodusa mapurisa. Kutaura kwatiri kuita nanhasi muri kushandisa majeri ema-imperialists. You are using the same police force ema-imperialists locking up people. These was systems which were created by the imperialists, systems which were created by the whites when they came to Africa. This is the truth. You will never hear any truth like this in the world that I'm telling you, I'm teaching you. You might think it's shallow. This is probably the clearest understanding of politics I am telling you here that when whites came to Africa, and you don't know South Africa and Russia allies through BRICS, I know everything. This is why I'm going to teach you about Russia. This is why I'm going to teach you about Russia. What I'm telling you, Eustace, is the truth, undiluted truth. That when whites left the United Kingdom, they came to Africa for business opportunities. They found you, Africans. Muchiruma netsetse, musina zvipatara. Vakashamisika varungwa. Kuti mune mosquito. Inokonzera malaria ikakuruma unofa. Mune inonzi tsetse, dzinokonzera na trypanosomiasis, ukarumwa unofa. But they found black people there, not dying. Vachirumwa nemosquito, vachirumwa netsetse, apana munhu mutema aifa zvekudaro. Saka they were surprised. Ndosakaona vakafunga kuti if we take these people who are disease resistant, we take them to America, they can go work, these guys. They can do whatever they want. Vakambotanga vachipersuade madzimambo kuti okumbira vana venyu vanoenda vachidzoka. But madzimambo vakati kuenda kupi vakaramba. Zvikanzi okay fine. Vakaya nembobho, capturing you, selling you there, going to America. Zvakatoshanda kuita maslaves. Tinatonga ichirise is Zimbabwean advantages. Yes, it helped a lot. It helped a lot to be slaves. I didn't know. We were not chosen to be slaves for any other reason, but we were resistant to diseases. So whites were so much interested. Tsetse iri kuruma munhu asikufa. Mosquito iri kuruma munhu asikufa. Saka munhu ane something chiri special in him that resists diseases. So if we take this person when anaye ku America, anosvika tikavaka Washington. And we did build Washington. We did it. I did it all. Saka, let me look into Russia. The historical perspective of Russia. Nakupinda mtopic Eustace. Russia has been under authoritative rule for most of its history. Early monarchs in Russia, they followed, early monarchs in Russia followed by the rule of the Tsars. I think, apana mnasina kuta history panapa, takaita history. Apana sikaziva kuti Tsar chakanga chirichi, led the Russian people to embrace that style. The Tsars, apana mnasina kuta history. As a country ruled by the Tsars, Russia enjoyed some degree of stability. Although a new leader meant a new regime. The people as a whole were very poor Russians and had little means of resisting their rulers. There are some common characteristics that you find in Russia and Zimbabwe. If you look at Zimbabwe today, Zimbabweans are very poor and they have got very little means of resisting their rulers. As you think you teach me about Russia from reading. I'm not reading from Google, unfortunately. I've done a research on what Russia is. I'm reading notes that I've written. I've ndakaverenga history Russia kubva tiri primary. So it's not from Google, unfortunately. I am reading from the notes that I've made, looking at what I want you to know. Andrew, most of this information you won't find it, but I want you to know something. Kuti paunobva panapa unenge wakuziva, waneka knowledge, waneka know-how. What is Russia? Why saying that Putin must be arrested? This guy is a beacon of knowledge. That's why people like you. Thank you so much, Trust. So I'm trying to, because I read a lot. If you look my book says I Google. Kuseri kwangu hakuna Google. My notes are ndanyora pa computer ndo andiri kuverenga. I don't want to use that. Sorry. Wakasa kuseri kwangu hakuna Google. Those books you can't Google them. Unotovhura page by page uchiverenga, understanding. What required here is understanding. What is required is reading to understand. Kana wakaita comprehension kuchikora hazvifaniri kunetsa. Taita English for what here, taita comprehension. We were learning to comprehend. we were reading to comprehend. Those books are Google. Eustace, those are books. You can take my books. Urubona ine topics acho. Irimwe racho re Office 2016 re Microsoft rokudzidzisa how to do an Word, PowerPoint, whatever you want to do with it. So I read to understand. So this is why I did, the professional graduate certificate in education, so that I learned how to gather information and impart the information that I have. I've got a qualification, a recognized qualification in teaching. This is why ndakuudza Eustace kuti rega ndikudzidzise. Ukatarisa I portfolio yakazara ma degree. One of my degree and now is a teaching qualification, recognized in the United Kingdom. Mamacha ya ma degree security, ma nursing degree, the forensic. Ngokuratidza kuti uzive kuti zvandiri panapa I'm qualified to do it. I don't just do it. I don't qualified to do it. And I kwanza mama degree acho ayangowanda ma degree sir. Like iri degree is a teaching qualification iri. Ndori nondipa simba rekudzidzisa. It's a recognized teaching qualification in the United Kingdom where I am allowed to teach. No teacher madhara akaita semuona Eustace, no teacher vana vadiki, vana vechikoro. Ndosaka wachona ndikagara pasi, I select information that I know it's very crucial for people to know. So I was talking about the Tsar. Zimbabweans, I like Zimbabweans. A lot of you guys did history at the school. So as a country, Russia, it was ruled by these Tsars. Russia enjoyed some degree of stability, although a new leader meant a new regime. The people, as a whole, were very poor and had little means to resist their rulers. This is why I said they are like the common characters that you find on Zimbabwe and Russia. During Tsar's time, where Zana Tsar, you will find that as this Kanyemba knowing nothing, if you didn't skip your history class, you know why Putin is so desperate to create that alliance. Yeah, I think he didn't do history at school. Anakuita chikuyo chisamarengu kuchikoro. Tata kutopa mazita wamwainza na chikuyo. Mwana anamtapa. Wamwainza na mazita zvimwe zvataingodzidza kuhistory zvataingopa vanhu ukangoona kuti mtapa ndeipi. So you find that the people of Russia during Ngwadzana Tsar, they were very poor people. And they had very little means to resist their rulers. Just like what happened in Zimbabwe today. We never thought that 21st century, or around 43 years after independence, Zimbabweans will be the poorest people in the world. And those poor people in Zimbabwe, there's too much fear in them. They can't resist their rulers. Honestly, Munagaida Sachiwenga cannot be my leader. But I've got little means of resisting Chiwenga. I've got little means of resisting Mnangagwa. But those two, to be honest with you, they are far beyond, they're far below the required leadership standard or who President Wenyika. You understand? So this is exactly what was happening during the Tsar's time in Russia. Our type of government is the Russian type of government. When the Tsarist regime finally fell, it gave way to Lenin and Marxists. Vakaita history, you still remember about Leninism, Marxism. Takazviita zvese it's a long history. Taiverengeswa zibhuku rimwe riya renhoro rehistory. So this philosophy took hold easily with the repressed the working class of Russia. The people responded very well. The people responded very well to a strong leader. So, Russia, muningina, if Russia yakapinda mu First World War, ikapinda mu Second World War. But paive ma influence aivepo during the Second World War. We eat for you, we rule you, we shoot you. Exactly. Thanks, Mgoma. Just Putin is richer than everyone in Russia, ruling for more than 30 years already. Mugabe ruled for more than 38 years, like Putin. Mnangagwa is expecting to rule for more than 30 years at 85 years old. Chiwenga also expects to rule us for the next 30 years. So for the next 60 years, if we don't become volatile and fight for our rights like what Russians did during the Tsars, we are going to be stuck with the ZANU-PF for the next 60 years. So if Eustace, you are 60 years, you are 40 years today, add the 60 more years of suffering, you will be 100 years old. So with Stalin in power, the Second World War was lighting a road of Russian nationalism. It instilled a sense of pride that persists even in today's Duma. Chinonzi Duma, ida parliament ye Russia, ndo yainzi Duma. Parliament ye Russia. Parliament ye Russia yakaizoestablishwa mushure mekunge vanhu varwa, vanhu vakuvadzana, vanhu vaurawa, vanhu vapfurwa mu Russia, ndo pakazointroducwa that parliament inonzi Duma. Duma is a Russian parliament. Anditi mona. Pakaipa. Amendo zvikupinda ere muningina Eustace. I can talk about Duma sometimes, but with the Stalin in power, remember I've said, the Second World War was a lighting rod of Russian nationalism. Instilled a sense of pride and persists even in today's Duma, today's parliament. Russian parliament is known as today's Duma. It's Duma. Ameno kana iri ndio explanation mkoma chicho wangu naundibatsira kana iri ndio pronunciation yacho. Because my Russians vaneka kutaura kamukasinganzwisike, so we call it Duma or Duma. This solidified the power of the communist government and consolidated the Soviet Union. That's the Second World War. So Russia under communists, the economy of Russia, although Russia's market system was purely socialist, the nation became an economic power, superpower. Under Stalin, Russia became highly industrialized. Competition with the United States drove development of new technologies. This is where the story is. This is where these worlds are apart. This is how they are apart. This is where they are apart. The problem in Ripo today is Russia, it is competing with the United States of America. Losaka uchona Russia yakamira yonda ndre bomba rinonzi Satan. They are competing with America. They compete with America. So what happens to America now? Russia, if it goes to other countries, it does not develop those countries. It goes there to sell weapons. It goes there to sell its technology. They develop different type of weapons. Develop this. Chongo. Russians, bongo zozo. Vanatoti vane chongo. Andruona. Chongo chavo ndochasvika pakuti Putin ezvinezvi angoti nyika yese iri around him angofila kuti akanyika akadika akutoti masoja pinda itrove. Ndo brain dzaEmerson Mnangagwa dzekuti munhu wese angoda yanzi komba itrove. Ndofunga uri kupabata because what they are doing is trying to compete with the America with the USA. Ndo pane nyaya yes. Ndosaka uri kuona USA yakatodaidzira yakati akangopinda muSouth Africa chete tata that bastard. Andiri kuona. So the military, if you go to Russia under the communists, and Russia never colonized Africans, but I don't support them. Yes, they don't colonize them because there is no African country that has ever been colonized by Russians. Similarly, there is no African country that was ever colonized by the Americans. Akuna. My African countries, Esaya, they were colonized by the Europeans. Ukapinda kwa Africa, ukaenda ku Zimbabwe, it's a British colony. South Africa is a British colony. And although they are like the Dutch is in South Africa as well. You go to Mozambique, it's a Portuguese colony. You go to Angola, it's a Portuguese colony. You go to Botswana, it's a British colony. You go to Zambia, it's a British colony. You go to DRC, it's a German colony. As you go upwards, inyika dzakagwaniwa ne Europe. If you read about the scramble for Africa, it talks about Europe. And those Europeans were the people who were capturing, as you should listen to Colonel Douglas MacGregor. He provides a sound perspective about the Russia international relations. Yes. So, Europeans were the ones who, not Asians. Asians, I've never seen an African country colonized by Asians. Never seen one before. The problem with Putin is when he comes to Africa, he is not bringing development. He's selling weapons. Even his own, as Putin, the dictator, even his own run away from him. Yes, he comes to Africa to sell weapons. He doesn't bring any development to Africa. If we want oil, we don't buy oil from Russia. We buy oil from Asia. From Asian countries, nana Saudi Arabia, oil. Putin has got probably the largest oil deposits in the world. But he doesn't even sell that oil to Africa. He doesn't bring it to Africa. No. What he's busy doing is taking his soldiers, his people, let's sit down. How do we make a best AK assault rifle? How do we make a best chibomba chake chino Satan chachi? That is what he's busy doing. He's not busy developing the world. He's not helping now in developing the world. And him. So the military and the secret police, this is where Russia is specialist in. Russia became a major military superpower. And many of its generals became extremely influential in Russian society. The KGB, Eustace, you know about the KGB. If you don't know, it's unfortunately the period I have here is very short to talk about the KGB a lot. But know that the KGB kept a close eye on both the Russian people and the Americans. And the secret police had a very tight grip on the society. In a similar way, the CIO has got a tight grip on the society in our country. ZANU-PF ishandisa propaganda yekuti you are the Western puppets. Every time we talk, you are the Western puppets. It's because they learned it from the KGB. Most of the CIOs in our country are KGB trained, so Central Intelligence Organization people. And what they know is just the Russian propaganda. Anything they tell you, you are a Western puppet. You are a Western puppet. That is propaganda. They learned from the KGB people. But the KGB had always their eyes on Americans. Whilst they maintained the tight grip on their society. The Russians themselves. Vanga vasina kana freedom. Hakuna mRussian aiti bufu. Hakuna bufu mRussia. So the people and their freedoms were under attack in Russia. Under communists, personal freedoms took a backseat. The state was always the most important under Russia. Under these communists. liberties enjoyed by Western democracies were not shared by the Russian people. But due to propaganda, fear, and a history of obedience, the people didn't rise up. This is exactly where you find Zimbabwe's politics are in. Mnangagwa, they are initiating the Russian style of politics, where personal freedoms are never respected in our country. Mnangagwa, every time he addresses the people, Chiwenga, every time he addresses the people, we learned it also from Robert Mugabe, that what they say is that the state is always the most important thing. They don't value your personal freedoms. This is why you see, even Ngari, let's go demonstrate peacefully. He is sentenced to 4 years in prison. Because the government in Zimbabwe doesn't care about personal freedoms. Freedom of speech, freedom to assembly, even freedom to protest against the government. But if you say, let's go for protest, you'll be incarcerated in Zimbabwe. They don't allow Zimbabweans peaceful demonstrations in our country. So you will find that these are liberties that are enjoyed in Western countries, but they are not allowed in communist countries like Zimbabwe. You understand? And you see, the Russian people were never allowed that as well. So there was too much propaganda in Russia. And the people of Russia are like the people of Zimbabwe, where there is this history of obedience. They don't ask why. They just ask how high. You understand? The people of Russia did not rise up. Similarly to the people of Zimbabwe cannot rise up. Hello guys, grind. That noise is too much. Can you tell them to retire to bed now? Switch off the television. And I wanted to teach Ponela politics today. I have got plenty of time of reading politics. Reading to understand politics and impart the knowledge that I gain. Politics apa. Politics. We have got a problem that Zimbabwe is a communist country. Being a communist country, all the personal freedoms have now taken a backseat. There are no personal freedoms in our country. And what is being preached by ZANU-PF is always the state is the most important thing. If you try to make sense or knock sense into Chiwenga's empty head, he will point at you that you are a Western puppet. You understand? What we enjoy, Eustace, in these Western countries, you will never enjoy it in Russia. You will never enjoy it in Zimbabwe. You are never allowed to protest in Zimbabwe. You are never allowed to protest in Russia. So this is the communist style of government. And under that style, this is where Putin rose up to become president of that country. Putin rose up in a system where where personal freedoms are not respected by the state. So Putin's rise to power can be directly linked to the societal upheaval following the fall of USSR. USSR fell. And Smith was even better than what we have now in Zimbabwe, definitely. What we are witnessing in Zimbabwe under a communist regime, it's worse than what we witnessed under Smith's capitalist regime. This is where I was telling my friend Ponela that, hey, capitalism is the worst form of government. I mean, communism is the worst form of government ever in the world. So weak leadership and the floundering economy left the opening for the then unknown Putin. Putin was an unknown KGB operative. anogona kuzviramba Eustace. He doesn't know that Putin was a KGB operative. He was not known in Russian politics during USSR. But the fall of USSR, it left a gap where this Putin saw that now there is a gap. I can maneuver. I'm not going to be president. So he came to the people of Russia. He promised the stability and the stronger state. The stronger state that Putin provided, which oppresses the Russian people, is what he delivered now. Putin has been in power for over 30 years now and has delivered what we call a stronger state. And all. Putin turned Russia again towards an executive-run nation. Remember, this was under the Tsars and so forth. And Putin, for 30 years, there is no democracy in Russia. No one man, one vote in Russia. Under his communist rule. And he has ruled that country for over 30 years now. His own party, the United Russia. Then other Bunza Eustace with the party of Putin on but now, party of Putin on the United Russia. He formed this party to help his policies. And his policies has now passed through the Duma. Formed a stronghold on 2 of the 3 branches of the government. A major problem now in Russia was the power of the oligarchs. The political elite in Russia siphoned off huge sums of money and coupled with the corruption, crippled the Russian people economically in a similar way with what is happening now in Zimbabwe. Putin, probably the most corrupt leader ever to emerge in Russia. This is why you see the Russians are economically crippled today. Putin killed the opposition leader daylight in prison. African people who fired such a monster. This is why I am saying the monster must just be arrested. The monster must just be arrested. So in order to regain some Russia's lost lands, Putin took major military action against, if you look at countries like Chechnya. Chechnya was a breakaway Islamic republic in the south. A very small country. Russia went there, bullied Chechenyans, fought with the Chechenyans, a battle that lasted for months and months. Because what Putin wanted to do is try to regain Chechnya, to reincorporate it into Russia. The Chechenyans, they fought for independence. They wanted to establish their country and rule their affairs. They didn't want anything to do with Russia. But Putin went there, bullied them, bombed them, killed Chechenyans. These were Islamic people in the south of Russia. So with a puppet leader now in place, Putin claimed victory for Russia and began forming his image as a decisive leader. This is what he did in Chechnya. This is exactly what he is doing in Ukraine, claiming that the Ukrainians, they are under the Nazis. This is Putin for you. Using propaganda that the Ukrainians are now under the leadership of the Nazi people, the former German ruling part. You understand? I wanted Ponela to be here to understand this simple history of Russia. That realizing Russia's major energy, Putin has taken a large step towards increasing the nation's oil production. Russia is probably a country with the largest oil deposit in the world. Putin has also begun rearming the country's military to Soviet Union levels. He is much into chigevenga chachiya chinoda zvongogara chakakiyana nevanhu, chigevenga chiblazi chachiya. So if you look at how Soviet Union military was armed, this is the extent where Russia has gone now, to make sure that it becomes a military superpower in the world, competing with America. But the good part is the small countries surrounding Russia, which gained autonomy, they are telling Putin, get away. I would rather get away, atabasa newe. So he comes, kana mamdara, get away Putin, anobada kuya kuzokurwisai. Because Putin is in an attempt to reestablish the nation as a superpower. This is why he bullies around. He is a bully in surrounding countries. So if you look at Putin today, he looks down on blocks of countries such as NATO. NATO, because NATO, Europe is a very small continent, probably twice the size of Russia. Saka NATO, kazhinji NATO countries, inyika dzinowanika munana Europe. And akadzitarisa Putin anozidherera nyika idzodzo. Much of Russia finds the organization to be either useless or a threat to the country's influence. As a United Nations Security Council member, Putin has attempted to block main actions that he feels would limit Russia's power or increase that of the United States. What Putin is against is the United States. And on. So the issue of who has the right to rule in Russia has a history of being questioned. Anofanira kutonga Russia ndiani? Zvinongwene nhoroondo yekubvunzurudzwa izvi. Ndiani anofanira kutonga Russia? Under the Tsars and the communists, strong authoritarian figures subjected the people to their will. Yet differing factions continuously fought to control Russia. If you look at Putin today, and they got thrown independence, and again Putin is still coming to fight. So what is the meaning of independence? Putin is just boasting. Definitely. This is why I am saying, if I look at Julius Malema addressing South Africans, you can tell the guy is talking from an uninformed position. Malema, to me, is a very clever boy. But the problem is, he doesn't want to read to understand. Russia has got a known history of bullying other countries. So, if he has to go and address his people, before you go and address your people, please, Malema, do your research first. When you go and stand in front of people, you say things that you have got reference to. Not kungotaura kuti Putin azvite asungwe. Putin is a war criminal who must be arrested today. In today's society, the oligarchies, people and government all have differing opinions on the optimal use of power. With Russia, power is generally concentrated in the hands of whoever fights hardest to gain it. Historically, the people have rarely fought for power, and therefore it is maintained by the government. This is what my friend, or this boy, Malema, doesn't understand. That in Russia, it's different from South Africa. South Africa Duma, or parliament, has got powers to chase away Vanogarasana Zuma kutakuda mu president. South Africa, Ndofunga, the only person who managed to complete his term of office was Mandela only. vakazotevera vese aingodakata 2-3 years adzingwa 2-3 years adzingwa. You can't do that in Russia. You can't do that in Russia. Because there are no people who can fight for power in Russia. This is why you see the power is maintained by the government. Malema is supporting Putin, who has been in power for 30 years. Because of a political system which is there, which maintains him in power. There is no democracy in such a system. So if I'm looking at Malema, he's talking from point of ignorance. When we are saying Putin must be arrested, we exactly know why Putin must be arrested. And I'm 100% behind America to say, look, arrest Putin. So we urge South Africans that don't be pushed by Malema. Malema is talking from an ignorant point of view. My brother, Putin Ponela, always speaks on ignorant point of view. It's not an informed point of view. Because what Putin wants is just to maintain power. And he maintains power by the blood of the people of Ukraine, by the blood of people of Russia. Russians are suffering. So like a typical federal system, Russia operates as the people wish. Representatives are elected popularly as in the president. This is exactly what happens in Russia. For it to become a democratic country, that's how Russia operates. Standard taxes and tariffs help maintain the nation's economy. And the government generally provides for the people. Authority is centered strongly in the executive, who makes decisions for the good of Russia. Judiciary, and the other form of government, this is exactly the type of government that you see in our country, where the authority is centered exclusively on the executive, which controls everything in Russia. In our country, our government, with all the powers, it does not provide for its people. Zimbabweans are suffering. We cope a system that doesn't work for us. Russians are very tired of Putin. Very, very tired of Putin. So, giving an overview from the government, Federal Presidential Republic, President, the head of state. Prime Minister is the head of government. Then there is the legislature, Federal Assembly. It's a bicameral. Tine Federation Council, which is the upper house. They are more senator of Zimbabwe. So there State Duma, lower house, which we call our parliament, our August house in Zimbabwe. This is a similar system like the one that is used in Zimbabwe. We've got bicameral Federal Assembly. Zimbabwe, ukaenda ku Russia, legislature yakamira yakadai. In a Federation Council, yakafanana nesenator muZimbabwe, ndo inonzi upper house yavo. Vane inonzi State Duma, yakafanana neparliament yatoti August house yedu kuZimbabwe, which is the lower house. Russia is a country in a constitution. It's a written constitution which was written in 1993. Russia's constitution that they are using today was written in 1993. My voting qualifications in Russia do vote well. Universally, you need to be 18 years and above. In a similar way to Zimbabwe. Mune High Court in Russia. Mune Supreme Court in Russia. Fundamental changes took place in the political system and government structures of the Soviet Union that altered some of the nature of the Soviet federal state and the status and powers of the individual republics, because it was a federal government. Yakaiwana kam Soviet Union. Mamune ma states, ma individual republics aivemo. Wana Ukraine now, wana Chechnya, vanani, they were like individual republics which formed USSR. So from the late 1980 through 1981, the period of Mikhail Gorbachev, and the Yainzi perestroika, or it was a restructuring period, kind of the glasnost, which was an openness. So it was restructuring in an openness way. And there was this democratization which looked into the reform policies of Russia. Yanga iringuwa ya Gorbachev. Yanga iringuwa of restructuring with an openness and through use of democratic policies during Gorbachev. Gorbachev chakazoenda kachidhara chiya. Ka history ka nhoroondo. Nguva openness. Nguva Gorbachev achitaura about openness. Things were open to discussion, or politics were open to discussion. Politics were open to social discussion. And economics of the country were open to social discussion. So open discussion of political, social, and economic issues were done openly during Gorbachev. It's not done now under Putin. You cannot discuss about politics under Putin. An opposition member Russia, you are killed. Andrew Gunzo, Mainunu Zirize. People were allowed for open criticism of government and the government policies. You can't do it today under Putin. You are not allowed to criticize the government and criticize Putin's policies. Unenga a Western puppet, just like Zimbabwe. Gorbachev was clear on doing his business. He stressed that the ultimate test of the party lay in improving the economy of Russia. And he wanted Russian people to be at the center of doing everything. Open market relations, pragmatic economic policy, less secretive government. Anga asingade hurumende yekuti inotaura kuti procurement of health or vehicles in the Ministry of Health must not be open. That was never happened during Gorbachev. Mitemo ya muruna yakuswanana munanga gwakunzi procurement yemota dze Ministry of Health haifanirwi kuburitswa pachena kuti mota Ministry of Health yatenga mota ngani dzatengwa mari, because they want to inflate prices and so forth. This is exactly the policies that Putin is advancing in Russia. So, vanhu vasinganzwisise Putin vanofana kuteerera this presentation, vanzwisise what type of a person Putin is. Nguva Gorbachev kwaive a time of restructuring, loosened controls of the Communist Party, allowing group formation in other sectors of society. Russia is the only country, I think, in the world kwausingashndiswe zita rekuti president uchireva kana kuti munhu wekuzCTU kuti president of ZCTU. The word president was just meant for the president of a country. Kwakudzvanyiriri unoitwa muRussia. So there was this economic restructuring, modernization from within. The Gorbachev transfer of economic power from central government to private hands and market economy. Nobana nchida ponela auye panapa. But this point, the transfer of economic power from central government to private hands in the market economy. Authoritarianism of privately owned companies. Penalties for underperforming state factories. Izo zvizi zese iri kubhadhara wiki neuchivhayo $580 million. Izvozvi kana akatora $2 million akakatenga 10-20 motikari kubva kuUK achina nadzo kumba, he doesn't feel the pinch because he's obliged to be paid $560 million US dollars by nezesa. Under Gorbachev, that type of corruption yanga isingawanike yoyo. Saka even my price reforms, they were there. Encouragement of joint ventures with the foreign companies were there. Leasing of farmland outside the collective farms. By now, Zimbabwe is suffering. People are starving. We have got state land, which is occupied by useless, unproductive war veterans and thieves. 21 farms zabona, zugurimwe, and on. Ingarai farms wire, akapuwa dzimonyika, kana dzimongwena dzichirima mZimbabwe. But izo zvezvo munhu akagara pa 21 farms achizi ndedzangu. Urikuite hapana. So if you look at during Gorbachev's time, Russia ndopa yakatanga kuziva chinhu chinonzi democracy. Gorbachev wanted to insert some democratic characteristics into the old Soviet structure. However, he did want to maintain communist party control. Reforms included a new Congress of People's Deputies with directly elected representatives. New position of president was selected by the Congress. Deputies were often critical of Gorbachev, increasing levels of displeasure with the government from both the liberal and conservative members of the Communist Party. That was during Gorbachev's time. That will never happen under this Putin. And the people must understand today that Russia is a federal system operating under a constitution that was written after the fall of the Soviet Union. And this constitution was written in 1993. Mangwana, I'm going to dwell much on Putin and Russia. I want you to understand Chinonzi Russia chi. If you look in the new constitution of Russia, it maintained many of the same rules that existed under Soviet rule, suggesting that the Russian people are not fond of change. They don't like change. They are not fond of change. It did establish a three-branch federal system that would promote a democratic style of government and ensure the rights of the people would be protected. That is the constitution of Russia. In a similar way, the constitution of Zimbabwe does. And the 1993 constitution declares Russia as a democratic country, a federative, law-based state with a republican form of government. State power is divided among the legislative, executive, and judicial. These are the three pillars of a government. For a government to stand, it must have a legislative, it must have executive, it must have a judicial. These are the three branches of government. Ukaenda ku Zimbabwe, the legislative is quiet, the judicial is quiet. You only know about the executive. Ndosoka uchiona mnanga kwakutakura 2 helicopters achienda kunovhura kabridge kanokwana bhasikoro chete ne2 helicopters. I was telling my wife that, do you know, flying 1 helicopter from Harare to go and open bridge katakaona kachivhurwa kai, the monies that he uses there, the people that he ferries there, and his security entourage there. Or if you take all those monies used to go and officially open that bridge, they could have built 20 of those bridges. Or they could have built a very good structure that are wide and allows cars with furana dzipesana. Apana makore paka bridge kaikai. Manje ndazwa pachinzi paitika tsaona bhazi rawira muya. Vanhu vapera kufa. Apotsa road driver. The bridge is too narrow. Those are not the bridges we expect in a 21st century. So this is the problem where the legislative is not involved in the day-to-day running of or day-to-day affairs of a country. This is the problem where the judiciary is captured and not monitoring the day-to-day running of a country. This is the problem where the executive makes all the decisions, even for judiciary and the legislature. We end up having to bridge to kuti parliament ikagara pasi kaongorora ka bridge kaka kuti kakaita mari kakavakwa nani. And what's the purpose of that bridge? Parliament ikagara pasi kazviongorora chaizvo paipa panosungwa vanhu paka bridge kaya. So diversity of ideologies and religions is sanctioned, and a state of compulsory ideology may not be adopted. This is what the Constitution of Russia says. The right to multi-party political system is upheld by that Constitution. But today, be an opposition in Russia, you die. The content of laws must be made public before they take effect. And they must be formulated in accordance with international law and principles. Takashitaura mutemo wakagazetwa naMnangagwa wekuti hamufane kuziva maZimbabwenzi kuti kune motikari dzatengwa dzekuministry of health dzakati dzaita mari yakati imwe chete yakaita mari yakati. That must never be known. So you find that the contents of those laws, they are never made public in Zimbabwe. Russia's constitution inotaura kuti ngazvibude pachena. Zimbabwe's constitution inotaura ngazvibude pachena. Asi zvinoburiswa pachena here, Mnangagwa ari kutema nedemo mutemo yakadaro achivhara. So Russian is proclaimed the state language. Ukaenda kuRussia vanotaura chiRussian. Ukaenda kuZimbabwe where state language yedu English. Ukapasa Shona uwane basa nekuti wapasa Shona kuZimbabwe. Ukapasa Ndebele uwane basa nekuti wapasa Ndebele kuZimbabwe. Ukaenda kuRussia vanoshandisa English nemama languages, but their language, state language yavo iRussian. They speak Russia. Ndosaka uchiona maRussians ndambonza umwe munhu achitaura nyaya dzokuti havana kumboya kuzocolonize Africa. They can't speak English. When they come to Africa, vachava kuzotaura nevanhu vekuAfrica chirudzi. Very few Russians can speak English. This is why you see Russia did not venture into colonialism. Because language yekurussia kana kunyora chaiko chaiko handifunga kuti inini zvandakaita ndidzidze chiRussian. I need about 50 years kuti ndizonyatsotaura ndakutaura fluent Russian. By then I'll be about 100 and something years old. I'll be dead. And didn't want. Saka lusaka mwanta achitaura those three pillars of the state. Kulegislature Russia. Kune the Federation Council inowa upper house yao, ne the State Duma inowa their lower house yao, no parliament yao. Executive yao ina president, those are prime minister, those are deputy chairman, zvichienda kuma ministries. Ku judiciary kwao vane constitutional court ndoiri pamusoro, kozoya Supreme Court, kozoya Supreme Court of Arbitration, kozoya Prosecutor General. Ndo mamirira yakaita Russia. Saka tachitaura namdara ponela chimtaura kuti ukaenda kuRussia masystems atoshandisa muZimbabwe kazhinji they are Russian systems. Why? Because instead of Russia kuti yende unotraina maengineers vanouya kuzovaka mabridge munyika medu, ani mwana chibridge chavhurwa naMnangagwa chandiri kutaura ichi. Dai maRussians akatraina our engineers to build bridges. Dai maRussians akatraina our builders to build buildings akanaka. Instead havana kuvatraina izvozvo, vakanotora ndokuvatraina chiuto, ndokuvapa ma-AK assault rifle nenyere hobo, chiendai kuZimbabwe munorwa hondo. Andiona, which was wrong. Russia, ukaenda kuRussia kune mastadium akanaka. Ukaya kuZimbabwe hatina, tinongone national sports stadium yakavakwa, I think maKoreans and maChinese akavaka that stadium. Saka hatina zvatiri kuita munyika medu hatina. Russia, president weRussia anonzi Putin, munhu yekuti haana chakanaka chaanoona mune dzimwe nyika. He thinks of himself. He should be elected by popular vote after 6 years for a maximum of 2 consecutive terms. MuRussia unofana kuseva 2 consecutive terms chete. But Putin has served more than 30 years. But constitution yao inotaura kuti 2 terms. empowerment to appoint the chairman of the government, key judges, and cabinet members. Ane masimba ekuti anoita interfere with the judiciary. No anoappointa iye key judges and can declare martial law. This is why you see, and the Chinese, yeah, chakawakwa ma Chinese chakutsemuka chakudona chachi. So Putin is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and he can veto legislative bills. Urikuona ane masimba ekuramba zvimutemo zvelegislative zvinenge zvaitwa neparliament, the federal neDuma. Vakataura Putin ane powers to say zvandidizvi. So he has got absolute control of Russia itself. He determines the direction of Russian domestic and foreign policy. If Putin comes to South Africa, he must be arrested. These are the powers that Putin has. He determines the direction of Russia's domestic and foreign policy. Kupinda munyika ya Ukraine, kunorongana nekuuraya vanhu vemuUkraine, zviri kunze kwemutemo, it's him, Putin, anodetermine that policy. He is the commander-in-chief of the Russian Defense Forces. Ndosaka ndikutaura kuti mufana wedu uyu Malema Julius, kana achitaura Julius, he must speak to the people of South Africa in an informed way. Yeah, he's refusing. Kuti Anzi, Putin must be arrested. I said, I am going to say things that I think Putin must be arrested. Because one, Putin is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Putin is the person who can cancel some laws made by the legislature. Putin determines the direction of Russia's domestic and foreign policy. Can issue decrees and directives that have the force of law without legislative review. Has the prerogatives of scheduling referendums, submitting draft laws to the state of Duma, and promulgating federal laws. The powers that Putin have are the powers that made the Russians to go fight the Ukrainians for no provocation. The State Duma may file impeachment charges with the Federation Council if the president commits grave crimes or treason. A 2/3 vote of the Federal Council is required for the removal. And no one in that Federal Council would want to impeach, would want to see Putin impeached. Both these guys, they operate under fear. Putin is a gangster. And one. So, with no vice president, if anything happens to president, the prime minister assumes the office of president. Kanapasina vice. He nominates all the subordinates, government positions. My powers are now Putin. Na doubt vanhu vaone my powers are now Putin chete. Andruon. Ukatarisa ku legislature kwacho kune 2 houses. The lower house is the Duma. What are the duties of the Duma? Because my powers is taona ana Putin. The upper house in the Russian Federal Assembly, the Federation Council, it has got 170 members known as senators. Each 5 federal subjects of Russia sends 2 members to the council. Putin, so let me not talk about the Federation Council much. You've understood it. That it has the responsibilities in confirming and removing the Procurator General and confirming justices of the Constitutional Court, the Supreme Court, and the Superior Court of the Arbitration upon the recommendation of the President. Putin, they are not allowed to judge you. These people, the Federation Council, what their duty only to do is to confirm. Their lower parliament, 450 members of parliament, don't pass some bills, approves budgets, confirms president's political appointments. And iri yakazara nezvivanhu zvaPutin. If you look at their legislative process, they draft laws. Draft laws may originate in either legislative chamber or they may be submitted by the president, the government, local legislature, the Supreme Court, the Constitutional Court, or the Superior Court of Arbitration. Draft laws are first considered in the State of Duma, in the State Duma Parliament. Upon adoption by a majority of the full State Duma membership, a draft law is considered by the Federation Council, which has 14 days to replace the bill on the calendar. So let me not talk much about the legislature, because most of them, the setup is equivalent or is equal to the setup you can find in our country, Zimbabwe. And Saka, with these powers you have seen vested in Putin, this is why I am saying Putin must be arrested. Nakashida Ponela ave pano nas kuti Ponela kana wauya mdara. Remember, I spoke about socialism and communism. Ndikakutaurira Ponela ndikati nyika dzakaita sana China adzina kubva dzambo exercise zvana socialism. These are theories that these guys have adopted. Zvana Marxism. They have adopted these theories, but they don't implement these theories. Ukatasaye Karl Marx, the philosopher, he was just a philosopher. We have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, was to change the world. And Marxism, Marxism, you must understand this, is a branch of socialism. Marxism is a branch of socialism. Socialism, chakafanana nemuviri wangu inini. Muviri wangu inini une ruoko, une msoro, une makumbo. Saka Marxism, I branch in socialism. Socialism is the board. Marxism is probably the arm or the eye of the board. And Yuda, Malema is dumbfounded, and if you put the dots together, you will find out that Malema is under Putin payroll together with ANC. Definitely. This is why I am saying Malema should not lead South Africans astray in terms of arresting this Marxist idiot. Because Marxism is a theory that holds that the powerful classes oppress and exploit the less powerful by denying them their share of surplus they create. Marxism, socialism, cannot chi, no producer. But this Marxism does not allow you to enjoy the share of what you produce. And I've told Ponela yesterday, China, they have always practiced capitalism. Because capitalism is a social and economic system which is based on private ownership of the means of production. Go to China today. Shadaimtaura Ponela. Socialism or communism, I'm not Ponela. You only say this because it's a theory that the Chinese say we are going to adopt, that the Russians say we are going to adopt. But go to Russia today, go to China today, you will find that the economic system, their economic system is based on private ownership. And they own privately all the means of production. And the free markets of trade and operation is for profit from the means of production. That is, Kanawane farm, they farm for profit. Kanawane land, they utilize it for profit. Kanawane factories, they utilize it for them for profit. And any other resources are utilized for profits. This is what communism, this is what capitalism stands for. And this is what is capitalism. I wanted Ponela to be here. Although capitalism has got certain consequences that can be summarized here. I can summarize them here. as capitalism in a worst conditions of workers, housing and health. Zvinema disadvantages as income inequality. Ukapinda capitalist state, we are UK, it's a capitalist state. If you come here, unaona munu achihora $96,000 a month, 96,000 pounds a year. Munhu ari kubva kuZimbabwe zvakachaura kuya neCOS visa. Ukaona how much is that person earning? It's less than 20,000 a year. So there is this income inequality in this country. Kuti iwe uri kushanda pabasa, uri kera, uri kuhora 10 pounds. Uri kushanda nanesi, ari kupiwa 40 pounds an hour, 50 pounds an hour. There is this income inequality. This shows that we are in a capitalist state. Go to China today. It's in a similar manner. Go to Putin's country today. He operates in a capitalist way of doing things. Msokachona muno mu UK, vana vadiki chaiwo, andari kusekondari andontsvaga basa. Atakashanda na McDonald, vanenge vachideliver tsamba mails vana, because there is child labor in this country, which I don't think Eustace can understand this. There is hunger in a capitalist state. Unoziva kuti muno ukauya kuno ku UK kuno kune vanhu vakamirira kuenda kuma shops akaita sana Asda, vana what do you call, vana Sainsbury, vana besi ma shops kunotenga. Munhu anomirira kuenda kunotenga zvadzikiswa mutengo chete, zviri pama promotions, zviri pasero. But you can't buy fresh food. Most of those things zvinenge zvane time zviri mushop zvashisha. We go buy. If you don't buy, unofane nzara in a capitalist state. Nosaka uchiona vamwe vanhu in this country uchinzi vanhu muna varungu muno vanorarama bridge in a capitalist state. And more. So you see even pollution in capitalist state is so high. Go to China and see what I'm telling you about. Kuti ukaenda ku China today, you can tell kuti kune vanhu vamwe vari kurara, kune zvima slums in China. Kune vanhu vanorara panze kufane nzara muChina. China probably inyika ine highest pollution if you go to China. And recently Juju condemned 𝗍𝗶 regarding new law against gay rights. Yet the same person is defending don't even want to hear anything about gay. He's a confused boy. Juju is confused. He's a confused boy. And on ndaponela nasi kuti ndakamuti mangwana nduna, I will talk about communism, Marxism, I will talk about socialism. Most of these things takazviita kuchikoro, takazviita kuhistory. And rikona ukaenda communist, if you go to a socialist republic, chai, you find that the population collectively owns the control, they own and control means of production. That is never happened. It doesn't happen in Russia. There is no collective ownership of means of production in Russia. Go to China. I wanted him to be here. There is no collective ownership and control of production in China. Amuna. They do their production individually and for profit. If you see, the distribution of results is proportional and reflects a welfare society. Go to China. Do they distribute equally? Pane welfare society. Go to Russia today. You won't see this. So the issue about socialism is done on theory only. I wish Ponela was here to understand this. That socialism is just a theory that cannot be practically implemented. You can't implement socialism. Ukabvapo woenda ku communism. Zimbabwe inyika inonzi a socialist or a communist country. Kazhinji ndopakabva sare kunzi tonzi matororo. Anditi bakanzwa chinsingaira achimba kuti mhandu macommunist maruza here vapambe pfumi maru here vapambe pfumi. And hanzi gandanga mwana wana here mubambe pfumi gandanga mwana wenyu wamakasiya achibuda kunze ndokusangana nemhandu iyo anzi mhandu macommunist and they are happy to call themselves communists, these 𝗦𝗡 people, but I don't think they understand what the word communist means or communism means. They don't understand it, because communism is a form of government where people shared work fairly and were paid equally. Go to Zimbabwe today and you see if workers are paid equally in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is far from being a communist country. China is far from being a communist country. Russia is far from being a communist country. These are theories on paper which cannot practically be implemented in any country. You go to Zimbabwe today, a government of Zimbabwe does not allow people of Zimbabwe to share equally or fairly. This is where you cannot call Zimbabwe a communist country where Bona Mugabe has got 21 farms. How many farms do you have yourself, Eustace? How many farms do you have? When Bona has got 21 farms, how many farms does Matemandada have? Andrew, there is no fair share of everything in our country. And the workers are not paid equally. If you go to Harare, Zimbabwe today, go to my farm workers, what about $5 a week? $5 a week. $20 a month, Zimbabwe. But that country calls itself a communist country. They say they practice communism. Andrew, Sakadagad 𝗦𝗡, they are good at adopting my theories. So communism, it's a Latin word. Remember yesterday I was talking about agriculture in Latin. It's just like the word communism. It is a Latin word which means common or belonging to all. If we have got a house, it belongs to all. A country belongs to all. It's common. It belongs to every Zimbabwean. The mode of production must belong to Zimbabweans. The land must belong to the people. Must belong to Zimbabweans. This is where work is shared fairly, and this is where people should be paid equally. This is what we want when we talk about communism. If you go and preach communism to the people of Zimbabwe, when I'm looking at you, are you talking about communism that I know? Or you are just talking of a theory to say this is what we should be adopting in a country? Zimbabwe has never been a communist country. These people were taught what communism is by the Russians. The Russians themselves do not practice communism. Zimbabwe do not practice communism, although they were taught what communism is. Zimbabwe has never been under communism as a form of government. Because a communism government is a government where people share work fairly. They share everything fairly. Where employees or vashandi or workers are paid equally. That is never done in Zimbabwe. Azviitike muZimbabwe izvozvo. Andoona. Saka the country does not belong to all of us. Ndosaka ndakataura ponela kati imbouya mudhara ndikudzidzisa. I don't know where he went today. I just wanted to teach him something so that panopera presentation inoyi anenge ana idea kuti chii chinonzi communism, chii chinonzi socialism, chii chinonzi capitalism. Wotsvaga kuti Zimbabwe inomira papi, wotsvaga kuti China inomira papi, wotsvaga kuti Russia inomira papi. Andoona. Because if you talk about business ownership, we talk about competition and profits under these three theories. Let's talk about business ownership in communism. Most businesses are owned and operated by the government. In a communist country, most businesses are owned and operated by the government. In a socialist country, or under socialism, the government owns and operates major industries. Individuals own small businesses. Vanamdara Ponela, Vanama business owner is a businessman. He owns certain businesses, but major businesses must be owned by a government in a socialist state. As Gundi teacher ji, nduda kudzidzisa mdara nhasi zvawanga usingazive. Remember yesterday you were arguing that China is a communist country or is a socialist country. Ndikakutaurira kuti China is a capitalist state. Ndikakutaurira pano mdara kuti Russia is a capitalist state. And those states, they only adopt theories which they never practiced. Similarly to Zimbabwe. Ukaenda kuZimbabwe vanokutaura kuti it's a communist country. But do we share any form of government in Zimbabwe? Do we get paid equally in Zimbabwe? Ndakakubvunza nezuro mudara ponela kuti if you go to Zimbabwe they call themselves a communist country, but do we share work equally? As I am speaking right now, 𝗦𝗂𝘂𝗁𝗶𝗶𝗵 is being paid $580 million by ZESA for providing no work. Akangotora chikabhina akasiya apa kandopa ndoda kuzoisa mapanels panapa, solar panels project. Zvatopera kwari 𝗦𝗂𝘂𝗁𝗶𝗶𝗵. $580 iri kupinda in his pocket. Is that how we call sharing work fairly? Is that vashandi chaicho vemuZimbabwe, are they paid equally? Go to China today, they are not paid equally. Go to Russia today, they are not paid equally. They don't share any work equally. This is why ndakataura nezuro kuti mdara, some of these theories are just on paper. They can't be implemented practically. I was telling you that in the United Kingdom, UK is a capitalist country. Russia is a capitalist country. America is a capitalist country. China is a capitalist country. They practice capitalism. Because if under capitalism, business ownership chaiyo is individuals own and operate all businesses. Muno mukaya muno mu UK, my business muno they are operated by individuals. Go to China today. Most businesses are my business in China, they are operated by individuals. Go to Russia. This is what we call a capitalist state. If you look at competition in those countries, in a communist country, let's look at Zimbabwe. Could tikataura competition in Zimbabwe? Is there any competition in Zimbabwe? There is none. Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe, the government owns and operates everything. Is that correct? Could if you go to Zimbabwe, could Gurumende Zimbabwe, does it own and operate everything? Which is no. It doesn't. It does not. Zimbabwe government does not own and operate everything. No. If you look at the profits, excess income goes to the government. Let's look at a simple idea, a gold mafia. Paitaurwa na 𝗍𝗵𝗱𝗃𝗁 kuti ndotora briefcase ndoisa $1 billion imomo, ndoisa red tape yakanzi diplomat. No one will open that. $1 billion will travel from Dubai to 𝗍𝗵𝗱𝗃's house. Rakanyorwa kunzi diplomat, pasina munhu anorivhura. So any income or profit made by the sale of gold in our country, does it go to the government? No. It goes to the individuals. So if you call Zimbabwe a communist country, you are wrong. Because business ownership in Zimbabwe, competition in Zimbabwe, and the profits are not owned by the state, are owned by individuals. And who is benefiting from the state resources? Vanaponela nana chivayo. And Vana Ubet Angel, my diplomats, Vana Macmillan, Nana Rutland, those Rhodesians, former CIOs. Those are the people benefiting from the resources of a country instead of benefiting the majority. And Zimbabwe calls itself a communist country. That is not true. I think today, Mdara Ponela, ndikazokunzwa wakuita nharo futi ndokuchaya Mdara. Hanzi mkoma warowi, but iwewe mkoma ndombo kuchaya imbichana. Nombo kupinza imuringi, nombo kukutai blood imbichana mkoma. Zimbabwe is it's not a communist country. This is why this is what I wanted my brother Ponela to understand. I'm just giving very good examples, clear examples, simple examples to teach him today that no, you are not a communist country. You are not. And you are not a socialist country. Because if you go to a socialist country, business ownership, the government owns and operates major industries, whilst you individuals own small businesses. And what? Sakunda tingamdi government. He's a human. He's an individual. You are Mdara tingamdi government. You are an individual. And so individuals in our country, they own major, or they do major operations, or they own major operations, or major industries in our country. They are owned by individuals. And that removes ZANU-PF from Zimbabwe from being a socialist country. Because in a socialist country, the government should own and operate major industries, which our government does not own. If you go on competition, competition is restricted in major industries when you are a socialist country. Encouraged, but it is encouraged in small businesses. If you are a socialist country, is that the setup of Zimbabwe? Which is no. Profit earned by small businesses may be reinvested in the business. Profits from government-owned industries go to the government. So, if you go to Zimbabwe, profits which are owned by government, which are earned by the government, they go into individual people's pockets. Mari zekunana Reserve Bank, tinotone list revanhu vainzi yaimtore mari ku Reserve Bank. And this is what Reserve Bank yakasanga kukweretesa mari rini, a central bank of a country, kukweretesa individuals. Saka uchiona mari profits acho they don't go. Bita akatombobvunza akati ko mari dzemadiamonds dziri kuenda kupi? Because they never found their way into treasury or state coffers. So you find that calling Zimbabwe a socialist country, that is wrong. Zimbabwe is never near socialism. Zimbabwe is a capitalist state. Britain is a capitalist state. Russia is a capitalist state. China is a capitalist state. Although they want to be like a communist state or a socialist state, they are no near any communism, no near any socialism. If you look at capitalist state, business ownership, individuals own everything, and they operate all businesses. If you go to Zimbabwe today, Zone 4 is owned by Putin Ponela. Engineering, what means of production, state roads, private company. Hakuna chinozi ichi ndeche state ichi. Basa rao is to milk the state. No basa rema capitalist state. If you come to the United Kingdom, you find almost businesses a good example. Daupa a good example mkuma ponela. Muno inonzi care work inoitwa muno. yamuri kuona yaunza vaZimbabweans akawanda. If you own a business, an agent no provider care in this country, you are paid a lot of money by NHS to pay your workers. You can pay your workers £60 an hour. But if those same workers with the similar skills go work for NHS, they get £20 an hour. This is how a capitalist state operates. You don't pay people equally for the same skills. Similar to Zimbabwe. Yekuti ukatarisa mari inoorwa naChiwenga, utarisa mari inoorwa nadoctor. Munhu akaenda kunoita medical doctor, akaverenga akadla mabhuku, uri kana akagara akutarisa ndoziva zviri kufunga pfungwa dzako nezvaunenge uchinzwa. Kwamutaura kuti ndiri kunzwa zvakati, okudza kuti ndakuita zvakati, uri kunzwa zvakati. Zvausiri kunzwa iwe doctor achikurapa uchipora. But muZimbabwe, doctor hardly earn $1,000 a month. Chiwenga earns about $100,000 a month. So you will find that Zimbabwe is a capitalist state. Most countries in Daraponela, Zamaita Naro, those are capitalist states, where competition is encouraged by market forces and government regulations, where profits goes into individual people's pockets. Individuals are free to keep profits and use them as they wish. And more. Pakaipa mukoma ponela. Because if you try to look, taketa history tese, who was the father of communism? It was Karl Marx. Chimdara cheku Germany jaja, chainzi Karl Marx jaja. Ndo chakaisa theory iyo communism. And on. Chaitaura about class conflict. Chaitaura about surplus. Chaitaura about alienation, scientific communism, dialectical and historical materialism. Chaitaura icho Marxism himdara chainzi angel. Vachi interpreted the world, how the world should look like. Vachitasa the reality that exists in human mind. They were looking at different things. Matter exists independent of mind. Looking at different things that incorporated ideas into a theory. Akatarisa means of production. There's a primitive mode of production. There's an ancient mode of production, and a feudal mode of production, capitalist mode of production, communist mode of production. These were the theories that looked into it. My theory, my class of struggle, and I'm not going to dwell on this because it's part of history. History lesson. History lesson. They were looking at the theory of surplus. Surplus value, which is equal to the new value created by workers in excess of their own labor costs, which is appropriated by the capitalists as profit when products are sold. Imimi munoshanda kufane kushanda. Pamunozotengesa ma products aya, profit ya munozowana ino surplus ye, aiuye kwauri inoenda to an individual. You are paid just nuts. This was a way of pauperization, where poverty was the result of exploitation. If you look today, go to Zimbabwe, you will find this theory working, that the surplus goes to Hubert Angel. Ma gold panas and those who remain pauper, and exploitation will make sure that they won't get rich. Muna anopinda pasipe mgodi kunofukura mgodi will never be rich. And all. Saka, if you look or read about this theorism, Daraponela, you will find that the same theories are the theories that are being implemented in our country. But totally, the population of Zimbabwe does not collectively own anything. And they don't control the means of production. The means of production in our country is controlled by individuals. The distribution of results is not proportional and does not reflect a welfare society, which does not make Zimbabwe a socialist country. And ndofunga namboshitaura nezvazvo kuti ma objectives of socialism zvinenge zvichireva chi to guarantee a minimum standard of living, which are not guaranteed in our country. Mune vanhu kuti nhasi automboziva kuti akamuka anodyei, mangwana akamuka anodyei. And more events Zimbabwe makes people not equal because akuna Zimbabwe painopindira kuti you make sure kuti socialism objectives they've been implemented in our country. One objective of socialism is to make sure that they create full employment, they end poverty. Zimbabwe is far beyond that. And my workers in Zimbabwe, they don't enjoy their fruits. Someone is paid $5 a month to kunosakura kumunda unofudza mombe dzemwe. And production is geared toward use, not profit. People have more control over their lives. That is in a socialist country. If you go to Zimbabwe, do we have control of our lives? Or any production, do we use that production? No. Saka pane zvinhu zvakawanda mundaraponera. Zvekuti tikada kutaura, tikada kukondinya nezvozvo, under my systems iwayo, people of Zimbabwe has got no basic human rights. They have no basic human rights. And they doesn't control their government. Their government officials do whatever they want. They make laws. We are not allowed even free elections. SANU-PF will go rig. And the government own the basic means of production. Do we? No. And makes most economic decisions. Does it? No. Most economic decisions are kuitwa nana Java. Zvakuitwa nana Java hazvichaitwe negovernment. Vana Java ndo vakukontrola mudhara munangagwa. Andimona. Saka nyaya yatiri kutaura iyoyo mukoma ponela inyaya yamufana kuunderstanda. You can go back and read history. Read it for fun. And then I read things to comprehend. So that when I'm teaching about these things, I really know what I'm talking about. Tikadautaura industrial revolution panapa. Totaura zvakawanda. Zvana manifesto zvakatangwa nana Marx, wana Karl Marx. Andimona. Saka ukama uripo pakati peRussia naAmerica wakabvira kare. Ndosaka America kana ikakuti isungai Putin, imimi batai Putin chete, momira kunzwa kuti macharges akamira sei. Zvekunzi Putin asungwe akapinda muRussia akapinda muno asungwe. Mpana malema emboswedera kure. Tambira kure nenyaya idzi. Because you are just opposition. Unogona kufa usina kuitonga South Africa. Andimona. Because zvanotaura malema kazhinji kana achiparidza atakachiparidzira poor South Africans. Poor South Africans. Because he thinks that South Africa has got a political system in which the government owns all property and is ruled by one party with complete control over the economy. And he knows this, that ANC runs, ANC has got complete control over the economy. But sometimes I disagree with this. Because ANC itself does not control the economy of that country. South Africa is a capitalist state, it's not a communist state. And more. Because that country has got private ownership of property. Imomo mune vanhu vane land yavo. Mazilema akambotaura ngatinotora iminda ndikati imboenda tione. Imbozviitai zvakaitwa kuZimbabwe tione. And because South Africa, every person ariko does not work for the welfare of all. You work for your own welfare. Saka takamboti malema chimbozvitraya tione zvauri kutaura izvi. Timboona social and economic equality yautaura you want to see in South Africa. That will never work in South Africa. That will never work in South Africa. I'm telling you. Malema has got no powers to end capitalism. And that social class in that country, it will never end. Saka South Africa ishangoramba iri zvairi. malema akachingopenga akachitaura isusu hande tinosunga Putin chete. Let's encourage South Africans kuti kana muchida life yakanaka, if you don't want to be like Zimbabweans, once Putin steps his foot in South Africa, endai munomusunga. Takurai matemo nechizvamunoita. South Africans vanotakura matemo chizvo, endai munobata Putin well. Because mukamuregerera, you are going to suffer. Let me say this in English, that once Putin steps his foot in South Africa, I encourage the people of South Africa to demonstrate and go and arrest Putin. Bring him before the ICC. Because if you don't do that, South Africa is going to suffer. You cannot let a war criminal come and enjoy life in your country. No, you can't do that. It's like Britain allowing 𝗦𝗱𝗱𝗶𝗂𝘁 to come and enjoy life in here. Buy property from stolen money. From stolen money. From the monies 𝗦𝗱𝗱𝗁 is using to buy properties here in this United Kingdom are the money stolen from the poor people of Zimbabwe. Andidimon. Saka izvozvo ngazvimbomirai vakomana. Ngazvimbomirai. Russia on its own is an imperialist country. China is an imperialist country. Although they want to operate as communist country and trying to operate as communist parties, that does not make them communists. Andiri mugona. Saka pakaoma ndaida kuti mundaraponera vazive totaurirawo mfana wedu uyu Malema Julius kuti muning'ina batai mbavhai, batai mhondi ikapinda munyika menyu, batai musaregerera Putin achienda, please. Musaregerera Putin achienda. Putin batai, musamuregerera achienda. Angopinda chete muRussia, arrest that man. Arrest him. Because if you see what he's doing in Europe, Putin is like fueling, funding terrorism, attacking another country for no apparent reason. And the more. Sakana apinda Putin, please arrest him. Arrest this man. Bozo kada kuona zvanenge Vladimir zvaanozviita, anofunga kuti is unconquerable. He thinks the boy is unconquerable, the man is unconquerable. He just needs to be arrested, this one. And the man. Saka, ladies and gentlemen, anchada kuramba ndichitaura time ndo yapera. I've been here talking about this Putin in Russia. Anzi ndichiko na ngoma Edi Mende. Aiwa atapedza. Putin ngabatwe. Putin ngabatwe. Batai munhu. Kana munhu anetsa varume batai munhu. Batai munhu, batai munhu, batai munhu. Batai munhu. Andi batai munhu. Because ukada kuona kuti Putin and the story, brother of Russia, deputy prime minister, detained by police for birthday banner celebrating Vladimir Putin's 61st birthday. Putin's beginnings. Rwanda. Putin's Putin. He was born in 1952. He's 10 years younger than Emmerson Mnangagwa. And he was the only child in a family of factory workers. He graduated from Law Department of University in Leningrad to St. Petersburg. He joined Foreign Intelligence Service of KGB in 1975, right out of college. Rose through the ranks of KGB until 1991. He took a new job as chairman in St. Petersburg mayor's office. Putin. And transferred to work directly under the then President Boris Yeltsin as first deputy manager in 1996, after rising through the ranks of St. Petersburg city government. July 1998, he became new director of Federal State Security, or Federal Security Services, which succeeded KGB. KGB yangafanana ne-CIO. Now akusina KGB. Kwane inonzi Federal Security Service. Zvanaka proposa last time when I did a presentation. Kuti department rakada se Central Intelligence Organization, it has failed its tests as the intelligence agents of our country. One, it just needs to be disbanded, and its operatives being deployed into various positions. Those who doesn't want will just retire and on. So in Russia, Soviet Union used KGB, but Russia yakabva no haichadizvana KGB. Vane Federal State Security ndo yakatora nzvimbo yeKGB. So in August 1999, Putin was appointed Prime Minister na Boris Yeltsin. In 1999, he was appointed Prime Minister na Boris Yeltsin. Then in March 2000, he became President of Russia. 2008 election, Putin was re-elected for his second term. Putin was re-elected for his second term in 2004. He could not run again in 2008 as it would violate the constitution of a country. So law changed, extending presidential terms from 4 to 6 years that year. His preferred candidate that year was 𝗍𝗻𝗱 𝗍𝗻𝗱𝗶. Anenge mshona anuzi 𝗍𝗻𝗱𝗶. 𝗍𝗻𝗱 𝗍𝗻𝗱. He was the preferred candidate for Putin. Because pakapinda Putin in power, ku Russia vaita ma 4-year term, president aita 4-year term. Saka akaseva his 2 terms. Saka ndobva vazochinja mutemo wachinja, ma terms a president ku Russia ya 6 years. Saka iye dai akarana aityora mutemo weconstitution yeRussia. Saka akabva aregera kupinda, ndobva asapota munhu ainzi 𝗍𝗻𝗱 𝗍𝗻𝗱𝗶. He became the candidate, and he was elected that year, and Putin was elected as prime minister. Undergone. That was in 2008. Putin became prime minister, whilst 𝗍𝗻𝗱 became president. March 2012, Putin was elected as president again in 2012. And then he chose 𝗍𝗻𝗱 as a nominee for prime minister. Is a democratic country, this country? Is Russia really a democracy? A question that I've been asking. Putin has been in power since 1990. Medvedev, president, said to be a figurehead. Duma passed the laws oppressing freedom of speech and blasphemy, as well as outlawing gay, lesbian, what activism in 2013. Government prosecuting writers who speak out on issues like Chechnya conflict. This was Putin. As asiponela ari kuhome care. Ndinombomdzidzisa kuti azive Putin wake kuti chii chinonzi Putin. And on. Third term called clamped down on civil society by former minister 𝗦𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂 story. So sources of some of the things that I've spoken about is biograph.com, amnesty.com, .org, npr.org, Moscow Times. This is where I got most of this information about Putin. So Putin does not run Russia in a democratic society, in a democratic means, or in a democratic way. Saka ndati zvikwanhasi ndofunga vaziva zvakawanda mukomaponela kana kuti Eustace mfana wedu at least wazivawo something that you didn't know kuti Putin chakamira chakaita sei. It's just a bully. It's just a bully. Ukuthi ukada kufunga kuti why is he in Ukraine? Why is he fighting Ukraine? Why is Putin fighting Ukraine? He doesn't even have an answer. Why Putin is in Ukraine doesn't have an answer. Because in myself, I simply want to live in a peaceful country. You want to live in a peaceful country. I don't want to cause any evil to anyone. And I don't think there is anyone who wants to cause any evil to anyone. If I am to cause evil, let me cause evil unto myself. I don't want anyone to suffer because of shepherdhood. So I don't understand what is Putin like. What is his war in Ukraine? What is it for? Because I don't want to suffer. Because if you look on 24 February, President Putin, he sent Russian troops to invade Ukraine. What was his idea of invading Ukraine? A country which is probably 10 times less than Russia itself. They have been fighting ever since. And they have been bombing in Ukraine. People being bombed. People being killed. Many people have fled their homes. Many have fled to nearby countries. Some have fled as far as Zimbabwe, as far as the United Kingdom, as far as America. People fled their countries after Putin sent his troops to invade Ukraine. There are some relational factors that people must understand. Ukraine and Russia, they have shared cultural and linguistic ties for hundreds of years. Ukraine was the most powerful country in the Soviet Union after Russia. Ukraine has been a hub for commercial industries, factories, and defense manufacturing. This is why Putin does not want to lose Ukraine. Ukraine also provided Russia with access to the Black Sea and crucial connectivity to the Mediterranean Sea. It was a very crucial country in terms of Russia. So relational factors, reasons for Russia aggression. The reasons are economic factors, geopolitical and strategic factors, enlargement of NATO. He doesn't want NATO to be enlarged. And there are other geographical factors that are involved in the reason why Putin is an aggressor in Russia. Main problems in Russia-Ukraine relationship is Russia points, Russia's points. Gas pipeline system. Russia language question. Ukraine and NATO. Economic organization. The custom union. If Ukrainians points up, natural gas price. Russia has got the pipelines which supply this gas to other countries. Territorial disputes, especially in Crimea. This is where fighting is even today. Russia backed insurgents in Donbass. Imagine Putin, like if we become insurgents in Zimbabwe, then we are supported by Arnold Ramaphosa. This is what was happening in Ukraine. Azirgani mbokanga angu mapudi ndichanzwa chokwadi. Saka anda kuzwa ponela vanzwisisa kuti urikuona Ukraine has got a desire to join NATO and become a European Union country. Russia does not want Ukraine to become a EU country or a NATO country. Why? Why? Russia has got a lot of propaganda against Ukraine. They don't want Ukraine to become a NATO country. They don't want Ukraine to become a EU country. Why? Then you invade that country. As a result of that invasion, you find a lot of countries involved. USA cannot watch whilst Putin is bullying other countries. NATO cannot watch whilst their member is being bullied. Take European Union, United Nations, Canada, Germany, China, they are all involved in this conflict. So if you look at how the world reacted, United States, when it looks at this aggression, it's an unprovoked and unjustified attack on Ukraine. This is why I am saying, if South Africa is taking sides with Putin, supplying Putin with arms of war, ammunition and so forth, South Africa is becoming an accomplice in this unprovoked attack on Ukraine. And it's unjustified. This is why I'm saying, Malema, if you are opposition member of parliament in South Africa, if you support someone who attack another country, Putin attacked Ukraine unprovoked, and that is unjustified. It's wrong for people in South Africa to entertain Putin back in South Africa. If Putin steps his foot in South Africa, Putin must be arrested there and there. Because G7 countries, they're looking at that crisis as well. It is a very serious crisis which will threaten to the rules-based international order with the ramifications well beyond Europe. United Nations, they've looked at it and they've said, telling Putin to bring your troops back to Russia. This is what United is saying. UN is saying, Putin, withdraw your troops, take them back to Russia. Definitely, why are you in Ukraine? Why are you fighting Ukrainians? And anymore, NATO choosing the path of aggression against a sovereign and independent country. Because why? NATO is saying, why Putin have you chosen this path of aggression against a sovereign and independent country? I don't expect people in South Africa to support that. To say South Africa is a sovereign country, is an independent country, then Zimbabwe attacks South Africa. Send the troops to invade South Africa. That is wrong. I don't expect anyone with a sound mind to support Putin in this aggression. is saying this is a heavy blow to regional peace. Already Putin has destabilized regional peace. People of Ukraine deserve peace. I think that's the problem with the people in South Africa for supporting this aggression. Putin has disturbed the peace. Why did South Africa deploy soldiers in DRC? Why did Zimbabwe deploy soldiers in DRC? Because they were rebels destabilizing peace in DRC. So why today are you supporting Russia? Russia's aggression against another country? This is why we are saying Putin must be arrested. The Chinese themselves are a superpower in the world, but they are taking this issue precautiously. But what they just said is, we are monitoring the situation. Chinese people don't want to be involved in this. They know Russia is wrong. You cannot be an aggressor on another country and you expect Chinese to support you. It's wrong for South Africa to ship arms of war to Russia. It's very wrong. Because even the Canadians, they've asked Putin, why are you attacking another country unprovoked? You were never provoked. But you just order your troops aggressively to occupy another country. For what reason? This is why you see a lot of countries have been supporting Ukraine with resources. If you look at the United States on its own, it has supplied Ukraine with the resources, getting things to Ukraine, which costed the United States taxpayer about 40 billion. World Bank has put about 5 billion, 5.26 billion in there. United Kingdom on its own has given aid to about 3 billion. Germany to about 1 billion. Grant given to Ukraine. Private sector on its own have raised funds which amounted to about 200 million to fund, to help the Ukrainians. The general public, Ukraine, general public has raised about 350 million so far to try and assist Ukraine. Then South Africa is raising weapons, is raising bombs, weapons for Russia. What for? South Africa is supporting aggression. So supporters of the war outnumber opponents, probably by a ratio of 4:1 in Russia. Vastly more Russians blame the United States, NATO and Ukraine for the destruction that blame the Kremlin. Support for the war is segmented by age, with older Russians more supportive than the young. The young Russians, they don't want this war. They understand they want peace. Most Russians believe Russia will defeat Ukraine, which is not going to happen. Because Ukraine is a strategic point. When Russia was in Soviet Union, Ukraine in Soviet Union, most of these weapons were made in Ukraine. It is a very strategic country in terms of Russia. In terms of that region. Most weapons were done there. Most weapons were done there. So it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy for Russia. Because when they went there, they thought probably within 6 months or so, they will be done with the Ukraine. Saka, pakaita misjudgment. Putin misjudged. There is a great misjudgment there. This is why you look food and economy. Outcomes of this war are shortages of food, destruction of economy, displacement of people. Geopolitics is affected, energy is affected, security of everybody, everywhere in the world is affected. People are scared, as I'm talking. They're scared of being unleashed, Satan being unleashed to the people of the world, destroying this world for no apparent reason. This is why I'm saying why Putin should be arrested. One, people are starving. The economy has been destroyed. It's not the Ukrainian economy alone. Even the Russian economy is destroyed. The world economy has been destroyed. A lot of people have been displaced by this war. Bombings left kids, women, and innocent people killed in this war. So, this is why we are saying Putin should be held accountable for this aggression. He must be held accountable for this aggression. I don't expect anyone sane, anyone normal, to support Putin in this. But to a greater extent, zviri bo kudona kweSouth Africa, Zimbabwe inonaka. Skafumo must run free and fair election tonakiro. Yeah, now South Africa has gone down. Makaona ndakaseka last time. Waiti ukaenda kuSouth Africa. Waiti ukaenda kuSouth Africa uida kuziva kuti imari here haisi fake rand here rawapiwa. Waiti ukatora mari yekuSouth Africa ukaidai. Ukaikanda pasi. Yai twasuka yega kudai, twasuka yega. Eno South Africa yakatora bond paper kuprinda mari. Ukadai so, ukaikanda pasi inoramba yakaunyana. It's like Zimbabwean bearer check. Mari South Africa now. They are new currency. Saka South Africa yadona. Economically, South Africa will continue to go down. Saka guys, I am saying to myself and you and to Ponela and Kamban that don't support Putin. Russia haina chakanaka chayakambonza kuAfrica kunze kokuunza pfuti dzapedza vanhu muAfrica. There was genocide in Zimbabwe. AK assault rifles being used by the communist government to kill innocent people in Matebelele. There was genocide in Rwanda, where those AKs were used to kill innocent people, innocent civilians. In 𝗍𝗹𝗱𝗶𝗶, Mozambique, there was genocide. People were murdered, people were killed, using Russian-made weapons. Russia has never been good to Africa. We benefited nothing. Their oil goes to Europe. Their gas goes to Europe. It doesn't come to Africa. So we benefited nothing from Russia except weapons and ammunition, firearms and ammunition that killed millions of Africans. So, Ukrainian war must end. Putin must be arrested. So this is the only way to end the Russian-Ukrainian war. Because similar shift in Russia's favor may well be playing out geopolitically. Beyond severing ties with Russia, the European Union must decide to welcome greater integration of Ukraine and Moldova. They must be integrated into European Union. Putin surely knows that if Europe's strategy shift is to be credible, it will have to increase its military power. Beyond Europe, the West campaign against Russia has not always found strong support, even among allies and partners. But that war must end. Putin must be arrested. South Africa, you have got a chance to bring peace to Ukrainian people. You have got chance to bring stability to that region by ending Ukrainian war. And that conflict must come to an end. 𝗍𝗶𝗱𝗊, because post the disintegration of Soviet Union, Ukraine gained independence in 1991. This is when Ukraine became an independent country in 1991. Ukraine was a member of Soviet Union until 1991, when it disintegrated, and Russia has tried to maintain the country in its orbit since then. So we should never allow Russia to bully an independent country. Russia has always wanted Ukraine to be part of it since Soviet Union disintegrated in 1991. In 2014, a separatist insurgent started a war in Ukraine, especially on the eastern side, where industries, which is the heartland, industrial heartland of Ukraine, kunonzi 𝗍𝗹𝗱𝗶𝗵 basin. And Russia further gained a maritime advantage in the region due to that invasion and annexation of Crimea. Ndo zvamuri kuona zviri kukonzeresa hondo. Russia yakanoba part of Crimea. And as a result, both the United States and the European Union have pledged to safeguard the integrity of Ukrainian borders. So, importance of Ukraine to Russia. Ukraine and Russia have shared cultural linguistic ties for hundreds of years. Ukraine was the most powerful country in the Soviet Union and Russia. Ukraine has been a hub of commercial industries, factories, and defense manufacturing. Ukraine also provided Russia with access to the Black Sea and the crucial connectivity to the Mediterranean Sea. This is why Ukraine is so important to Russia. This is why Russia is refusing Ukraine to be part of European Union. There are other economical benefits, factors which are affecting this relationship. But we should never support aggression, because NATO is an organization that is enlarging. It accepts any member. NATO is a military alliance of 28 European countries, 28 European countries and 2 North American countries that constitute a system of collective defense. Kana mamsikaziva kuti chinonzi NATO chi. It is a military alliance of 28 European and 2 North American countries that constitute a system of collective defense. And hakuna nyika yairima wheat, say Ukraine, even gas remuken rakawanda. This is why Russia iri kutaura kuti haisiri kuda kuti Ukraine iende kunojoina vana EU. Mukoma Charles Kambara zviri sei. So enlargement of NATO is the process of including new member states in NATO. It becomes big because it has got 28 countries. So it wants to enlarge, it wants to get big. Since the German unification in 1990, NATO has added the new members 5 times. The alliance had 12 founding members in 1949, which currently has 30 members. Members include the Baltic countries of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, that share borders with Russia. Saka, you find Russia chaisingade kuti all the countries that borders it becomes NATO countries. They see problem. They don't see good members. Members also include Hungary, Poland, Romania, and Bulgaria. All of them were part of the former Soviet-led Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact. And more. So, latest developments, ladies and gentlemen. Russia has been indulging in military build-up along its borders with Ukraine. As an aspiring NATO member, Russia has stated that its troops deployment is in response to NATO's steady eastward expansion. Russia argues that its moves are aimed at protecting its own security considerations. This is why Russia is attacking Ukraine. Russia has mobilized around 100,000 troops on its border with Ukraine. Russia seeks assurance from the US and Ukraine shall not be inducted into NATO. This has resulted in tensions between Russia and the West, which have been supportive of Ukraine. The US has assured Ukraine that it will respond decisively in case of an invasion by Russia. This is the background of that story. You see that Russia had to send a lot of troops, 100,000 troops to its borders, had to send tanks, had to send everything to the borders with Ukraine because they didn't want Ukraine to join NATO. Russia had its own demands. It has demanded a ban on further expansion of NATO. It's how bully this Putin is. This is why I'm saying Putin must be arrested. Because Putin is saying he's demanding ban on further expansion of NATO. That includes countries like Ukraine and Georgia and share Russia's borders. He doesn't want the countries that share Russia's borders to be included in NATO. Russia asked NATO to pull back its military deployments to the 1990s level and prohibit the deployment of intermediate range missiles in the bordering areas. Further, Russia asked NATO to keep its military cooperation with Ukraine and other Soviet Union republics. Russia is. So the West responded. The US has ruled out changing NATO's open door policy. You cannot change your open door policy because a bull is saying so and so must not be your friend, which means NATO would continue to induct more members. Those who will come to NATO, you are welcome. The US also says it would continue to offer training and weapons to Ukraine. The US is said to be open to discussion regarding missile deployment and mutual reduction in military exercise in Eastern Europe. Germany has also warned Russia that the Nord Stream 2 pipeline would be stopped if Russia were to invade Ukraine. The US threatens Russia by imposing new economic sanctions in case of attempts of invasion against Ukraine, which eventually came. This is the background of the matter. This is why we are saying South Africa must help arrest this Putin. Once that Putin steps in there, he must be arrested. So that was the way forward. This is the way forward. Ukraine's internal disturbances need to be addressed to revive the 𝗻𝗎 II agreement for development of peace in the region and dissolve the ongoing tensions. And on. Sakapakaipa, guys. I'm not going to make any further presentations from this, but what I'm saying now is tane problem. That war yakazotanga and diplomacy impacted, economy impacted, and we are in trouble in the world. The Putin is trying, and they will not arrest Murungwao. That's the problem. If they don't arrest Putin, that means South Africa has courted problems with the world, and it's likely that we might witness civil war in South Africa. This is why you see there are other states within South Africa. South Africa, a lot of people didn't know that South Africa is a federal state. It's a federal state. So most states in South Africa, they want independence. And they are going to gain independence. Believe me. Those states, it's like Lesotho and Swaziland, they are within South Africa. There are other countries which are within South Africa which want independence. So let's keep our eyes open and watch. We are going to have another 2 or 3 countries coming out of South Africa. The federal country will collapse. It's just like Zambia. A lot of people didn't know that Zambia is a federal country. South Africa is going to collapse. It's going to collapse. We are going to see the emergence of Azania in South Africa. Because if you see Pretoria, it's a capital seat of a certain country. Johannesburg is a capital seat of another country. Cape Town is a capital seat of a different country. So there are 3 or 4 countries merged together to form South Africa. It is a federal state. And that federal state, believe me, South Africa will disintegrate. After this, South Africa, we are going to see 2-3 countries coming out of South Africa. It is going to be divided. South Africa is going to be divided. We are going to see 2-3 countries coming out of South Africa. The federal country. Dutch, British. Disintegrate. As a result, you find Zambia Zambia will split into 2 countries again. Diriora rembanje vanogara mudiriwo vakomana vanogara mudiriwo diriora rembanje vanogara mudiriwo musatambe navo vanogara mudiriwo diriora rembanje vanogara mudiriwo diriora vakomana. Good night. Musara zvakanaka. I think Mana Eustace Nana Ponela, they've learned something from this presentation. I will continue to research and bring you more information that will enlighten Zimbabweans. Kudikana pane vai support Putin. There you are. You can't support Putin on this aggression. And I say Putin must be arrested. Good night.